Okay. So all of us are here to talk about the opportunities in civil engineering. And as explained by Kritika, it is quite right that civil industry is actually the basis of all of our industries, and it is something that a heavyweight contributor in our GDP as well. Let's say if I have to talk about GDP after agriculture, the next industry that is the major contributor to GDP is civil industry. And it is quite right also that the people do not know much about the industry, as well as when we, whether it is you or I, when we study, we also do not know major parts of it. So I'll first start with my journey in terms of telling you how I went about my career for past 10 years, and how uh, I have taken an effort to grow myself. At the same time, how the companies also take an effort in growing the talents. So, as you all know, I did my BE Civil from BIT from 2005 to 2009. Then perhaps after that, 2005 to 2009, the only two options which I knew at that point in time was one is GATE and second was NICMAR. That also I realized very late. Perhaps in the last year or so, I came to know about NICMAR from one of my seniors. So I looked into NICMAR. I understood a few details about NICMAR, and then I joined NICMAR in 2009 to 2011. Then in 2011, during the campus placements, I got placed in Shapurji Palanji Construction Private Limited. And since then, I am working with Shapurji from 2011 till today. Perhaps I would, in a day or two, I'll complete 10 years in the organization. As I told you about the companies taking a keen effort on staff retention and staff development, and definitely construction industry in last 10 years has seen a difference in thinking as well, wherein I would not say that the industry has changed to a level where it can be called as an organized sector. However, the industry's perceptions have changed, wherein technologies have come into the industry, wherein the leaders have started accepting younger talents, the leaders have started accepting to the changes. So, so perhaps for last 4 or 5 years, there has been a trend of changes in the industry. And if I have to say something about the current stage of the industry, I think this is the best time for the civil construction industry, and it is definitely going to grow. And I'll tell you why also on my further slides. So talking about this accelerated leadership development program, this is one of the initiative that Shapurji takes on year basis, wherein they select 20 or 25 odd employees from all over the country, and then they put them into a program which they short form wise they called it LDEP, which they do it in association with Manford. When I was there, they were doing with Manford. Now they have a different consultancy in place, and with IIT Madras. That's a 2 years of course wherein you go through various cross-functional trainings, various internal workshops, and various institutional trainings for your overall development. Then in 2018, I was a part of Global Project Management Practice Leadership Program which was in coordination with RICS. Uh, Many of you may not know what RICS is, and perhaps we would talk a lot about RICS when we go ahead. RICS is the Royal Institute of Charter Surveyor, which is based out of UK. It is one of the premier certification institutes, and now they have also started the MBA programs. So this was done with association of RICS and John Moore University, Liverpool, wherein we had various sessions in Amity University, Noida, as well as John Moore University in Liverpool, wherein we could see a lot of construction sites in Liverpool. We traveled from one site to another site in Liverpool to understand the industrial practices that UK industry is adopting in terms of going about their businesses. So this was also one of the programs that company came up with in developing the local talents at par with the global construction practices. Now, if I have to talk about my career path in terms of the functions that I saw, so this is something which which is very important in terms of your overall growth, in terms of your overall understanding of the business. So I started as a planning assistant just after I completed NICMAR. Then after a year or two, I was given the responsibility of heading the planning team at a project. So I was the planning manager. Then subsequent to that, I was working as a site officer manager, wherein I was taking care of planning commercial contracts and billing. So if you have to say basically everything inside the office in terms of controlling the project in contractually, cost wise, time wise, everything, but not as a project manager. The project manager was different, who was handling the site execution as well. Then after that responsibility, I handled the project as a project manager, where I was responsible for everything: the site, the office, the construction, execution, everything. And then now currently I'm working as the project coordination operations in Pune. I am handling 5 sites in Pune today, which has a variety of projects. Let's say there is a real estate project wherein there is a G+34 structure, RCC structure for real estate development. There is a high-rise structure which is for the commercial building, which is again G+34. Then there is a metro project that I am doing, wherein we are building 11 stations. So it is a combination of all those projects. So the purpose of telling you this was to, in terms of also letting you know, it is also very important that where do you start your career with. That is something which defines the trajectory of your career and the way you grow or you mature as a professional. So that is one thing which all of us should keep in our mind, that we start on the right uh, foot, right place. Uh, it is very easy for me to speak now because I have been through that process. However, I was completely unaware of the process when I started off. I didn't know what consultants mean, what contractors mean, what clients mean, what architects do, what designers do. I had a rough idea. However, at that point in time, I was not aware as to what should be the right path in terms of developing my career. And that is where I would want to congratulate your team in taking up this keen interest in organizing this workshop, in terms of at least discussing of what actually does happens in the industry, how people go about their businesses. Perhaps I can tell you something about what is good for you. So this is something which is very commendable from your team in terms of putting this together, so that you would know at least about what contractors do, what clients do, and you can. I put in few information on the slides, but any doubt that you feel about how the construction project operates, you are free to ask me, because my ultimate intent here in this workshop would be to talk about project management. That is something that uh, we see. We call it civil engineering, then we call it construction management, and then we talk about civil and construction. However, I would say, from a perspective of civil engineering, any project which either it can be a government project in Chhattisgarh, or either it can be a five-star hotel project in London. It is all about project management. So this is something that is generally not a part of the curriculum when we are in engineering. It is definitely a part of curriculum when you go ahead, you study from NICMAR or RICS. You brush upon that factor of it, because currently your basic focus is on developing the technical knowledge, which definitely is one of the most crucial factor in terms of creating a base for you. So this is something, is a base creation for you, and then the next step would be the managerial part of it, or the project side of it, which can definitely define your career path. So this is something I wanted to talk here. And let's talk about the industry 4.0. So this is something not only related to civil industry. Industry 4.0 is the fourth industrial revolution, wherein there have been three revolutions which are spanning for last 200 and 250 years. wherein the hands were replaced by machines. Machines are now being replaced by robots and all other areas. So Industry 4.0. So today when we sit, we are in Industry 4.0. It basically talks about all the industries being more technology friendly, wherein technology has overpowered the other areas. uh, it is one of the most crucial part of a manufacturing industry. I would not say that this is something which has overpowered construction industry at this point in time, because construction industry does have its own challenges of implementing the technologies, wherein manufacturing industry, if we talk, implementation of the technologies is far more simpler, easier, and something that people are able to do it. So Industry 4.0 is basically replacement of human intelligence with artificial intelligence, replacement of human with robots, replacement of a lot of things which we do on paper by internet or by augmented reality and those kind of solutions. So this is something which is the industry currently, and this also has a certain features in the construction industry with its own challenges of implementation. So let's talk about what is the future of construction industry. So these are the 8 parameters that I could come up with. However, as I said, there are a lot of challenges in implementation, and there are only, if you see on the screen, there are 8 parameters that you are talking about: smart materials, green buildings, virtual reality, augmented reality, drones, 3D printing, big data, artificial intelligence, and smart management, Internet of Things, and BEAM. However, as I said, the implementation is a challenge, and will always remain so, whether it is civil industry or it is a manufacturing industry. But as I said, construction industry has its own challenges. If I have to say, uh, definitely a question that should run through your mind at this point in time: why I am saying that it is a challenge in construction industry, why I am saying that manufacturing is simpler. Because when we talk about manufacturing industry, they have a similar kind of product to be produced day in and day out. Let's say when we talk manufacturing, uh, uh, let's take the most common thing. Let's take the televisions. So when Sony produces televisions, they produce same goods day in and day out with same specs. The specs may change, the specifications do change. Sometimes they call it plasma TV, sometimes LED TV, sometimes curved TV or whatever. However, their production facilities remain same. Their area wherein they work remains the same. Their workers who work there remains the same. Their controlling measures, their planning measures remains the same. However, when we talk construction, uh, it changes. Every project is unique in its own nature. Uh, in terms of demography, let's say there can be a project, uh, airport project in Pune, which could be very different from a airport project in Leh. Why I'm saying this example is Leh, the construction is off for 6 months. You can't do any construction in Leh for 6 months. So that is the kind of challenge that comes up in construction. So it is quite different for all the locations, even in India, even in abroad. The locations also play a vital role. The external factors, like let's say the project can be a government project, the project can be a private project. The governments can change overnight. The projects can come to a halt. So there are lot of, let's say, when the government changes, the production of the televisions do not change. But when the government changes, the construction project progress does get affected. So these are the factors, these are the dynamisms which are very much relevant in the construction industry, and that is why it becomes much more unorganized sector, and at the same time it becomes much more challenging for all of us. So out of these 8 technologies, if I have to say something which are very relevant in the industry, the technology which is very relevant in the industry today is BEAM. So I am going to only take time on BEAM. I am not going to talk other stuff. If I have to tell one more is drones which are coming in. Drones are only coming in for two purpose. One purpose is for the project monitoring, wherein the clients are insisting for 15 days capturing of the project progresses and the other areas. And drones also play an effective role in terms of the surveying. So if I have to talk surveying, let's assume that there is a forest and that there is a river going through, and then there are a lot of things, and you have to do survey by human equipments. Let's say by the total stations which the human have to carry from one place to another place, and then you depend on the human efficiency as well. So drones have taken a part now. People are accepting drones as a way of capturing the surveying in India also. So now lot of surveying is done by drones, wherein let's say when the national highways are constructed, or wherever there is a difficult terrain, people just fly around the drones, and then drones capture all the data in terms of what kind of forest, what kind of trees are there, what is the distance between the trees, what is the terrain, what is the slope, what is the river frontage, where is the river exactly located. So those kind of details drones are capturing now. And beam. So let's talk about building information modeling. So beam is something which is a thing of the future in construction industry. So when I say a thing of the future in construction industry, I did my first hands-on experience in beam in 2012, and I still say today in 2021 that it is a thing of the future because of the implementation challenges, as I said. So beam is building information modeling, wherein let's say you synchronize the multiple softwares that you use on site. So let's say for project planning purpose, the software that is generally used on construction sites is MSP, Microsoft Project, or Primavera. For drawings, you have 2D AutoCAD drawings, which are in 2D. So when I talk about building information modeling, is something wherein you convert the 2D drawings, let's say from AutoCAD, to a 3D drawing in Revit. So that is the transformation which you do it in Beam. So Beam has particularly two softwares. One is the Revit and one is Navisworks. Uh, there are various competitors to Revit and various competitors to Navis, and it depends on how want to use the technology. But let's talk about Revit and Navisworks for a moment. So in Beam, there is a Revit software which converts the 2D drawing into a 3D element, and you would feel why would somebody want to convert a 2D drawing to 3D drawing? Let's say it helps only in the imagination purpose. When you see a 2D drawing, few people are good at imagination. Few people are very good in visualizing the things. They can visualize what actually a 2D drawing on ground and a 3D structure on site would look like. But then you convert the element from 2D to 3D, wherein even the supervisor on your site can come to you and say, "Sir, I am not able to understand this beam, how it goes, how the connections are done." So you can basically take them through to the model on 3D, wherein they can understand how the building would look like. The second purpose of converting the beam model from 2D to 3D is clash detection. So when you let's say work on mega structures or complex structures, uh, uh, I I I would also want to tell you that I know you are currently studying, and certain things may not click to you at this point in time. But I am quite okay if you would want to connect back to me again after some time, and you would want to understand these things in detail on a one-on-one level basis. Also, I would be very happy to help you out with. When we talk about complex structures or complex projects, it can call for various, let's say RCC buildings would be there. Then you would have MEP services. MEP would be mechanical, electrical, and plumbing services. Let's say when we go into any mall, you or I go into any mall, what you and I see when I was at your level, what I would see would be flooring. I would see, oh wow, how great the flooring look like. It's a granite or it's a marble, or maybe the outer glazing, which we feel, wow, it's a good glazing system which they have done. However, while constructing, when you are doing the construction, There is a lot of sequencing, lot of planning which needs to be done in terms of completing those structures. And when you walk inside a mall, you feel sometimes you feel that the temperature is good, sometimes you feel that the temperature is not maintained well. Sometimes inside the mall also you may feel humid. Sometimes inside the mall you may feel, oh, it is too cold. So that is something which is a part of MEP services when we talk about mechanical, electrical, plumbing. So mechanical also compasses of fire protection system and the HVAC systems. So this all the things when you have to install, when you have to erect, there is a lot of clashes that happens between one element and other element, which you cannot visualize. So that is where beam comes into a picture, wherein you have a complex project, complex structure to be built upon, and everything you cannot understand on a piece of drawing. So that is where beam modeling comes into place, wherein you develop the 2D drawings into a 3D model for easy understanding of how the fire pipe will cross from one area to other area, how the HVAC duct will travel from one building, one part of the building to other part of the building. Now talking about, this is all about Revit. Then there is Navisworks. So let's talk about Navisworks. So when we say Navis is something that takes a 3D drawing to a 4D, 5D, 6D elements. Beam can have n number of elements provided the inputs you give it to. So, let's say Navisworks is something that takes care of the time and cost. And how it takes care of the time and cost of the project is basically through a Microsoft project program or a Primavera program, wherein you make a MSP program, you put it on the Navisworks, and then you simulate the Revit and Navis together, and then you see a virtual timeline and you see a video as to how the building will come up over a period of time. Let's say if a project is of 12 months, in that you can see when how the building will come up month on month basis. And at any given month of, let's say on the fourth month, you want to know what would be the progress look like in terms of the time, in terms of the cost, in terms of the resources. All those can be taken out from this beam. So why I put this of, I think this is sufficient for this workshop's intent at this point in time. There is a lot of things to talk about beam, but why I put this at the start and why I took so much of time in explaining this to you is because I would recommend all of you to go study about beam, study about what is the future of beam, study about the certifications which are available in the market today for beam. It is a technology, so it doesn't ask you for to complete your civil engineering or your masters or your MTechs or ME or anything. It is something which is a technology and which you can learn today also if you have a keen interest. And it is something that is going to be a difference maker for last, let's say, next 4 or 5 years. It is going to be a difference maker in India. It is already a difference maker in overseas for last 10, 20 years. We have been practicing it for 8 years. We have been able to take it from 3D to 4D or 5D level, but we have not been able to move beyond 5D level. So this is something that is something which we are also learning, and I would want all of you also to get into this from today, so that you also pick a pace on this from today. So you would be much better ready for the future. I'm not sure how much of it you can learn there, how many institutes or how many training centers are available, but you can definitely all of us know that everything is available on the Google today. You can definitely do it. There are a lot of online courses available. You can definitely connect with a lot of people and understand what beam actually is, and I would definitely recommend all of you to start working on this today if you have an interest in technology and if you want to position yourself differently tomorrow. So let's talk about. I am basically trying to take you through what is the future of uh, construction industry as such. Because once you understand what is the future of construction industry, you would definitely understand what are the opportunities available. So if you do not know what construction industry is and what was the past and what is going to be the future, perhaps you will not be better placed in terms of mapping the opportunities and making yourself ready for the opportunity. So let's talk about the sectors now, which are going to be uh, booming in India, and uh, the sectors which have a lot of potentials for tomorrow. And then perhaps depending on the sectors also, you can choose where you want to see yourself maybe after 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Uh, I'll also tell you what is the correct route of reaching to any sector. I would not say you to plan your career in terms of the sector. The careers are never planned in terms of your sector, because I started with a commercial project, IT building. Then I did 2 or 3 industrial plants. Then I did a residential project. Now I'm doing a metro project. So sectors are something which can change over a period of time. However, your base knowledge in terms of the technical knowledge that you are going through today in the civil engineering, and perhaps the technologies that I'm talking to you, and then the choice of company would definitely drive the way you proceed on your career. So let's talk about sectors. Why I'm talking the sectors? Because these are something that are part of government's agenda as well. Public parties, let's say in terms of private players, let's say the Reliance or uh, Adani's or any other institute, let's say GMR, GVK, these players are also very actively involved into PPP model currently, and these are the things which are going to be future. Let's say hospitals. Why I'm saying hospitals? Because all of us came to know last year how the hospital infrastructure is placed in the country as of now, and what are the challenges that we are facing. So there is definitely a lot of impetus by the government in terms of developing the hospital infrastructure as a whole. From, let's say, from I'm not only talking from a construction point of view. Definitely, if the hospitals have to be open, the construction would be done. However, from a terms of hospitals to the healthcare equipments to the insurances that are available in the country. So hospital is something that is going to be a thing of the future. Construction will definitely a part of it. Metro railways, uh, urban cities are now basically dependent on the metro railway system. So if you see, let's say when I was at your place in 2007 or 2008, there were only 3 or 4 cities which was having metro. Mumbai, Kolkata, or perhaps Chennai had just started, or something like those 3 or 4 cities, Bangalore. Today, if we talk, metro network has reached Indore, Bhopal, Nasik, uh, Kanpur, Lucknow, uh, Jammu, Srinagar. So I'm talking about more about the tier 2 or tier 3 cities now. So metro is expanding. Smart cities is definitely a goal of the government. Affordable housing, we all know that the government plans to construct around. They say it's home for all, but it is not going to be home for all. But majorly, there would be an impetus in affordable housing. Warehousing is something which has picked up only because of you and us, wherein we go on buying lot of stuff online. Warehousing has picked up pace in last 3 or 4 years, because everything that we buy online needs a place to store, and that is where warehousing is. The more e-commerce business increases, more people like Amazon and Flipkart, they increase their business, warehousing is going to increase. Airports definitely is going to increase. Educational institutes, industrial expansion, because of 2 things. One is Make in India, and the other is the shifting of bases of various companies from China to India. It is not that they are only shifting to China, India, they are shifting to Vietnam also. Vietnam is the close competitor to India in terms of the industrial expansion. So that is one part. Data centers, as I said, with more e-commerce, with more Facebook, Instagram, and all the other data. Earlier, you could relate. Let's say 5 years, 10 years back, there was hardly anything that we used to store on internet. Today, all our things are stored on internet, and it is very easy for us to store. Where we post a picture on Instagram, we feel it's posted. However, there are a lot of data centers which are at the back office for the Instagram and other players, Google, wherein they store all this data, Gmail and all those. And the last would be the redevelopment. As we know that we have very heritage buildings as well in Mumbai or in Kolkata or in other parts, or maybe not even heritage building. Let's say for a residential society also, which is there in Mumbai for past 100 years or 50 years, it is now time for them to redevelop. So those buildings are going to go down and come up again. So that is where construction is something that is something which is going to be created, demolished, and then created again, suiting the present theme of things. So these are the basic sectors which are very relevant in the industry today, and which are something which talks about the future of the industry, and something that should excite all of you in terms of the industry's position for tomorrow. These are few articles to back up what I just said. If you study here that warehousing sector to add 40 million square foot space in 2020 across top 8 cities. So this is something that 40 million square foot space will be developed in 2020. If you read the bottom line, in 2019, the total supply of warehouse was 37 million square foot. So whatever was this warehousing space available till 2019 on a cumulative basis is now going to be doubled in 2020. So that is the kind of e-commerce or cold storages or FMCG we are talking about, the development of those industries. Then on the right side, you can see that 100 smart cities were planned. Uh, there are various cities which are nominated as a smart city. The goal was definitely to have a lot of cities becoming smarter by 2021. However, the current progress I've seen on one of the article is only 11%. This is something which is going on very slow, but this is something that cannot be avoided, or it is something that is going to happen. So this is going to be then PPP collaborative models. As I just said, that now you would be studying a lot of articles or a lot of journals wherein PPP model, public private partnership model, is coming up, wherein the government is now just offloading all the responsibilities to private players. If I had to talk about one, Pune Metro, there is one 22 kilometers of line which is taken by Tata and Siemens as a JV on a PPP model. When we talk PPP model is, uh, I don't know whether many of you are aware or you are not aware, but PPP model is something which which is something wherein the private player, let's say Tata is going to put the money from their pocket, construct the facility, and then operate the facility for the concession period, whatever would be decided in their agreement, and then they are going to collect the revenue. So whatever the money that they put today, they are going to collect the money from that business, with whatever the inflations or whatever would be added would be taken care in their values or in the number of years. But that is what PPP model is generally. If I had to give you a relevant example wherein which you can understand, which is the highways wherein you pay the tolls. It is not PPP model as such, because it is BOT model, which is build, operate, and transfer. But this something, if you add something, some other dynamisms, it becomes PPP. So wherein you pay the fees for the tolls. So that is a BOT model, wherein the companies put the money, construct the roads, and they collect their money back from the travelers, and then that is how it happens. So now PPP model is very much relevant in metro. It is coming up in hospitals. Government is tying up with Apollo, Fortis, and other brands to operate their hospitals as well. It is coming up in airports. Adani has been a talk for last 1 month, wherein Adani has taken control of various airports in India, wherein they are going to operate on PPP model. So this is something, a model which the government has come up with for the economic growth, and I would want all of you also to understand and read about these models, what these models actually are and how do they benefit the economy. This is not something for, I'm not saying something for you to read in terms of reading it, but definitely when you will go through this things, you will become much more, uh, you would know much more about the industry, and then your maturity will also grow. The hospital industry, as I just said, it is going to pick up pace. It is growing at a CAGR of 16 to 17%, and the government is planning to spend 2.5% of the country's GDP by 2025 on development of the hospital industry. Then the next data center destination. India is definitely a next data center destination. As I said earlier, all the data centers were in China, even the industries were in China, and because of whatever happened over a period of last 1 or 2 years, the companies are willing to switch over to India. India to build 100 new airports by 2024. Most of them have already started construction, like the Leh Airport, which I was talking about, the Kanpur Airport, the let's say Pune, Navi Mumbai Airport, Airport is also a thing of the future, which is going to start in a month or two. And then affordable housing, as we just discussed, that the government wants to build 1 crore homes in urban and rural India for the citizens. Uh, then there are 35 model public multidisciplinary research universities. So educational institutes are going to come up. Even the IIT, IIMs are going to stretch further. For metros, as of January 2021, India had a network of 760 kilometers. So when I talk about India had a network of 760 kilometers, it was from the time when the metro started in India from Kolkata to Mumbai, maybe in 15, 20 years back. So in 20 years, the country was able to build 760 kilometers of operational metro lines and 540 stations. And today, as we sit right now, the country is constructing currently 578 kilometers today, and with plans of many cities under progress. Some are in planning stage, some in land acquisition, some into designing, and some into construction. So today, 578 kilometers is something which is under construction. I am not talking about the planning stage or the land acquisition stage. So you could just see how it is going, how it is multiplying itself now. And then manufacturing hub, I told that the industries are moving towards India. So that is also going to take place. Now we would talk basically about a project and the stakeholders that are involved on a project. And why we talk about this, because this is somewhere you would want to place yourself. Only two, let's say this is one part of the stakeholder presentation wherein I operate, and there can be other two things also that you could do after completing your civil engineering. One would be the entrepreneurship, wherein you start your own business. That is something I have not put in on the slides, because that is something that uh, you can uh, decide as per your financials, as per your family, as per your connections in political or other connections in other areas. So I'm not going to touch upon the entrepreneurship as such. And the other part of, except this, would be the government jobs. However, for government jobs also, I said it is again a project. So this chart would particularly talk about a project which is done by a private party or a project which is done by a government body. So let's say what is a project sponsor. Project sponsor is nothing but a client. The client can be private sponsor, be it Reliance, be it Emerson, be it General Electric, be it Haier, be it Sony, be it Samsung, or LG, or anything else. That can be a client, or it can be government. Let's say government of Uttar Pradesh, government of Maharashtra, central government. It can be anything. So project sponsor is basically a client who's putting his money to develop an infrastructure which they would want to use for a definite purpose. So the purpose of the project is already defined, what they are going to do, what money they are going to put, what business they are going to do, what revenue they are going to generate, and what is the sole purpose of that business. So project sponsor is something which is a client. Now let's talk of you being there. You can be a part of a client organization as well. Let's say when LG comes up with a project anywhere in India, they do not have a construction expertise available with them. They do not, because their primary business is to manufacture electronic goods and sell them in the market. So they do not have a construction specialist available with them in the industry. Okay, but at the same time, for you or I to be in a client organization, it is not something which you should be doing at the start of your career, and it is neither something that I did at the start of my career. Even today, I do not see myself working in a client organization, because when you work in a organization, you need to have a lot of experience. First thing. Second is, if when you have the experience, you have seen the market, you have seen the market how it behaves from one industry to another industry, and that is where you become a contributor to the success of a client organization, and that is what they look forward to also. And perhaps even if you get a chance, you may not be able to succeed in that role. So project sponsor is one stakeholder of a project, which is the client, and which is some that is an organization wherein you would not want to see yourself after completing civil engineering, or let's say if you go for higher education, even after completing higher education, you cannot work in that organization today. Let's talk about consulting engineers now. Consulting engineers are basically the project management consultancies, PMCs. If I have to name a few project management consultancies in India, one is CBRE, one is JLL, John Lang LaSalle, then there is Knight Frank, there is Cushman Wakefield. So these are 4 or 5 major consulting engineers or the project management consultancies available in the country today. And this consulting engineer's role is to support the client in achieving the overall purpose of the project. Let's say in terms of monitoring the time and cost budgets for the client. So they are the first party nominated by the clients in terms of taking care of the project on their behalf. Let's say even if there is a client organization, they have somebody like, let's say, Pankil Mahajan to take care of their project. But as an individual, as a only person, I cannot take care of the entire project. Let's say there is a project of 2,000 crores, I cannot take care of it. I would put a consulting engineer who would come with their 20-25 staff. Those 20-25 staff would be an expert into mechanical, electrical, plumbing, civil, RCC, finishing, block work, tiling, and all other areas. So those are called consulting engineers who handhold the customer in terms of getting the project constructed. This is something that can be a career option. This is something wherein you can get recruited after you complete, let's say, your uh, higher educations or even civil engineering. But this is something wherein you are only a consulting engineer. You are only there for consultation. You are not there for construction. So your role will be very limited. And when your role is limited, your learning is also limited. So that is something that you need to keep in your mind, that consulting engineers, when you join at the start of your career, you do not learn the things because you are not actually building it. You are actually controlling it. Now we come to general construction. So this is something that should be on your agendas to start off your career with. This is something which I started my career with, and I had absolutely no idea that this would be good for my career. But having been through for last 10 years through this path, coincidentally, however, I feel this is the most ideal route for all of the budding engineers to uh, go through. So general construction is the contracting organization. If I have to name a few, it would be L&T, Shapoorji Pallonji, Tata Projects. These are few market players if I can name off. Then there is Leighton and Wilspun, there is Afcons, then there are a lot of contractors in the market. But any contractor, if you start your career with, it is good, because then you would be doing the thing rather than getting it done, because there is a difference in doing the thing and getting it done. When you get the things done, you are only controlling them or you are only seeing them. However, when you get it done, you are actually doing the thing. So you know what is actually supposed to be done and how it is done, and what are the efforts which are required to do something. So this is something should be on your agendas in terms of general construction. You should look for a company wherein you should start your career, which are involved in construction of projects, be it a RCC project, be it a metro project, be it a railway project, be it a airport project, or any kind of project. But it should be a contractor company that you should look for working. In terms of private jobs, I am saying, I'm not talking about the government jobs. If it's a government job also, let's say, we talked about when I said you should not look for working in a government job. In terms of a private project, if you are if you are able to, let's say, crack PWD or CPWD or any other organization, there are various government undertaking organizations also, NBCC, HSCC, and other areas. If you are able to crack those, and if you are able to be a client's representative in terms of a government body, it's okay. That can also be good. But if you are definitely looking for a private job and you are not looking for a government job, you should be working with a general contractor. So these are the stakeholders, and these are the three major stakeholders that I talked about. Project sponsor is the client, consulting engineer is the PMC, and general construction is the contractors. And then they have varied competency requirement. Okay, so every company would need certain kind of competencies. So let's talk about a few competencies that are required. So when I say architects and designers, that those are basically a part of the design firms or maybe PMCs. Project managers, planners, commercial, project managers, planners, commercial, contracts, HR, finance, quality, execution, MEP. If I have to say all of this can be a part of a PMC or a consulting engineers also, or a contractor also, because a PMC would also have a project manager, the contractor would also have a project manager. But as we go down, the PMC would have only one planner. The project, the contractor may have three or four planners. The project, the PMC, the consulting engineers would only have one commercial guy. The we consult this in terms of, let's say, contractor would have three or four commercial guy. The contract, so let's say execution, let's talk about execution. The PMC would have four execution guys, the contractor would have 70 or 80 execution guys. So that is the difference. So then we talk about the opportunities being in abundance at the contractor side rather than a PMC side. The PMC organization, let's say for a 200 crores project, would be around 10 or 12 people on site, and for a 200 crores of project from a contractor side would call for around 80 or 90 people at a peak stage. So that is the kind of opportunities that we are talking about. That those are the opportunities difference in both the organization, and at the same time what I told you about uh, the learning as such. So now we talked about the competencies. Let's talk about the institutes for these competencies, or let's say certifications, or perhaps where do you see yourself after a certain point in time. So I've just come up with three institutes that you should look for after completing your civil engineering. There can be n number of institutes that are available in the market today. I cannot put everything on the paper, but I can definitely put the best options for you. So these are the three best options that you should look for. There is a fourth option also that we will talk about, but that is something that takes you away from the construction industry. These three options are the ones that keeps you in the construction industry. So as I said, I completed my PGDM from NICMAR. That was the only known organization available at that point in time for somebody who completes a civil engineering. So I completed my civil engineering. The competencies that I got was for a project manager, the planning, commercial, and contracts. And I told you how I came up in the ranks in terms of understanding the business and everything. So these are the competencies that you get, and the organization where you can see yourself working would be contractors, consultants, and clients. But as I said, clients and consultants are something that we should avoid, and we should work at a contractor's company if we are doing a private job. If we are into a government job, clients is also fine. So NICMAR, even though I have studied from NICMAR, I have put it at number two. So number one, I put it RICS and MIT University. As I told you at the start, we will talk a bit about RICS. So RICS, I told at the start, it is Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyor, UK. It was earlier only in the business of providing certifications to the professionals. Like if you see my profile also on LinkedIn, I am a MRICS. So I am a member of RICS. So that is something, a professional certification that I have taken, which is useful for me when I when I'm going through my job, and I can read certain journals and I can use it for my career growth, perhaps when I'm changing the company. But RICS from a professional certification course have switched on to now providing MBA degree, and they are now running a full-fledged college in association with MET University. So they have their first setup was in Noida, wherein I said at the start I was there for the training. So MET University Noida and RICS are working together in Noida. They have also come up with one more location which is in Mumbai near Panvel. So they are providing the MBA degree. So even PGDM was provided by NICMAR. They are giving an MBA degree because NICMAR is something which is not related or which is not in association with any university. NICMAR itself is an university. So RICS is something which they are doing with in association with MET University. Why I am putting my money on RICS MET University? Because first it gives you an MBA degree. Second, you are taught by the RICS associated professors. So those people also have certain experience of the industry and they have good connect. Let's say when you complete your MBA degree from RICS and you go to UK, people in UK realize what RICS is. People in Dubai realize what RICS means. So that is something which is a global organization. Uh, so teaching methods are also different. Teaching experience is also different. So those certainly adds value to what you learn. So that is something that you can look for. Third, as I said, it is in association with MET University, so you are bounded by the disciplines of MET University. Let's say you have to learn one foreign language, you have to learn certain business administration courses with the MET University, and then you are in the overall campus of the MET University. So the personality development that can happen inside that campus is also different. And then it certainly gives the same kind of competencies that NICMAR gives. So, and then the probable organization. So let's say if you talk to me, Shapurji is recruiting from NICMAR also. Shapurji is recruiting from RICS and MET University also. So, and perhaps I would not say in terms of remuneration packages would be almost same. It is not something that RICS employee would get certainly more money than NICMAR. So money wise, it is going to be the same. However, your degree is much more valid, and then uh, the teaching methods or the other things contributes a lot more to your personality development. So these are the two institutes that you can look for to in terms of if you want to go into a private job as such. The way I am going about my career, if you want to go about your career this way, let's say L&T, Shapurji, Tata Projects, or any other, if you want to be an active professional in the private industry, then these are the two institutes that you should look for. Third is the IIT, that is for BTech, MTech, and PhD. This gives you a competency on the design, teaching, research, and technical knowledge. And then perhaps you can try for civil services, design institutions, research institutions, and into also into an field of academics, teaching, which is also a very good profession. So this is something that you can look forward to. So these are the three institutes that I came up with. These are the three certifications that we can talk about. I have already explained you the competencies. I have already told you that any 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 industry or any development that happens in the country requires a construction. Be it a IT industry, they need a office to sit. If it is an industrial plant, they need a facility to manufacture. If it's a data, they need a place to store the data. They may not be storing it physically. They may be storing it virtually, but those racks are also needed to be stored somewhere. So anything that is to be done needs construction, and you can any construction is only project management. Remember this: construction, civil engineering is all about project management. When you will go further, when you will start your jobs, you will remember what I am saying today, that it is all about project management. And project management is all about planning, contracts, commercial, time, cost, scope, safety, quality. If I have to say five factors of a project management, it is time, cost, quality, safety, and scope. These are the five things. If you understand the meaning of these five things, and if you see how it operates, uh, this is basically what project management is, and then this is basically what construction is. Software courses that I would recommend you to learn would be first, as I said, building information modeling. I talked a lot about Beam because this is something I would want you to go through. MSP is the Microsoft project wherein you make the schedules. Primavera is no different than MSP. However, it is a simpler way of putting a schedule in place. And SAP is something which is used for. I don't know whether you have heard about SAP or not, but earlier ERP was the word which was used, which was for the enterprise resource planning. However, it was not capturing the cost the way companies wanted to use, and then SAP came up with SAP ERP, which is a which is a product, which is a software that takes care of all the costs. So when, let's say, when I am constructing something, all my cost is booked into SAP. So everything from a labor cost to a material cost to a machinery cost to a salary to even the water that we drink on site. It is all captured in SAP. So let's say when I work as a project coordinator or as a project manager or somebody works as a director of the organization, they can just log into SAP. They can just select the project code. They can just open the project code, and then they can just go into what are the components of the cost. Let's say material component, they can click on the material component. They can see how much we have spent on cement, how much we have spent on reinforcement, labors also, how much we have spent on carpenters, fitters, everything. So all the cost is properly bifurcated and stored in SAP, which definitely gives an advantage for the management to review the project health. And at the same time, earlier there was no preservation of the construction data. Now with SAP, even if I have, let's say I am doing metro today, if I have to do metro project again after 10 years, I can go back, open the SAP for the metro project that we did and capture, take out the data, which would place me in a much better position to quote for the project, bid for the project in a profitable manner and take the project and even execute the project. So SAP is also something that you can learn today also. SAP classes are definitely available everywhere in India, and SAP is something, a software that you can learn, and it is not something that SAP is only for construction industry. It is for manufacturing industry and all the other industries as well. So SAP is also something that you can learn if you are a software or technology kind of person. These are the professional certifications that you can achieve. As I said, I am a if I am a MRICS, member of Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyor. Then there is project management professional PMP. There is lead AP, which is the leadership in engineer energy and environmental design. And then there is a chartered engineer. So and then there are a lot of certification. I have picked the best four for you. However, you should stick to the first two, and this is something that you need to achieve after you are into your job. It is not something that you need to achieve now. What you need to achieve now is to go through this softwares, learn these softwares today. Also, you can learn all of those. So, thank you. This is all from my end. I have tried my best to talk about the industry. I have tried my best to put in what is the future of the industry, what are the technologies which are prevalent in the industry, where you should see yourself after completing civil engineering, perhaps in terms of the education or perhaps in terms of the job. So this is all from my end. If you have any queries, I am here and we can discuss on it.
Thank you so much, sir. If anyone has any queries, you can unmute yourself or type it out in the chat box. Sir Sakshi Deshmukh is asking.
Yeah, I can read it. What are the basic skills you think you should have, which will help us further our career? So, so Sakshi, if I have to answer you, it is something that depends on what kind of let's say what ways you go about your career, or let's say on your educational way also. Perhaps somebody, as I said, somebody may be good in technology, somebody may be good in technical knowledge, So it is something for you to realize what is your strong point. I would rather, it is also very important now. Perhaps if I have to answer you, I would be talking more on the interpersonal skill or behavioral side of it. It is something for you to understand what are your strong points. Every skill is important. Every skill also takes you ahead in your career. Rest be assured, if you are doing planning, you will go ahead in your career. If you are into contracts, you will go ahead in your career. If you are into commercial, you will go ahead in your career, provided how good are you in that skill, and what is the effort that you put in terms of picking up the skill, at the same time continuously improve and keep yourself updated on the skill. So that is something would be the most ideal way. And as I said, if you are basically looking for a private job, I would recommend you to go for a uh, further study from, let's say I said, from RICS or somewhere, let's say NICMAR, and then perhaps the skills which we are talking, let's say planning, commercial contracts, you would learn from those institutes, and then basis of how you go ahead on those, you can decide your further career. Amiksha also, I think, has the same question, so I think I have answered both of them. So then Ritik, sir, any specific type of internship or certificate course you would recommend for working on design and construction management? Uh, Ritik, if you can unmute yourself and you can tell me whether you are looking for a course right now, or you can write in the chat box also.
Oh, not right now, sir, but during the entire BTech process, I'm asking.
So let's say when we talk design, no, design is something uh, which is a huge area. You can be a structural designer, you can be a plumbing, you can be into plumbing design, you can be into electrical design. There are a lot of areas, but if you have a keen interest on design, first thing that you should do is you should go for a AutoCAD training. AutoCAD training is something which is a base of any design. AutoCAD training, and perhaps there is one more, there is a Tekla model design is also there, wherein you can take the training which is for the structural designing. So in my opinion, if you have a keen interest on design today, you can look forward for AutoCAD trainings and the Tekla model trainings. And then and for construction management courses, uh, as I said, perhaps today you need not worry about the construction management at this point in time of your uh, uh, career, or let's say educational front, because today your aim should be to develop the technical knowledge that you are going through from your civil engineering course. And construction management is something that would be the next thing when you go out from civil engineering and you go into a let's say RICS or NICMAR institute, wherein you learn the construction management, and then perhaps you see yourself as to how you're going, and then then certainly you can add value to whatever you're doing at that point in time. But perhaps construction management today you need not worry about. You should be focusing on your technical development. Shashikant is asking, does working with local contractor adds value, some value, if I am planning for a career in private industry? Definitely, Shashikant. It is not that local contractors do not add value to your career. It is not the case. They do add value, but then you need to see what kind of value of works or the scope of work that the local contractor is doing. Perhaps if a local contractor is doing something on a labor rate basis, you would only learn labor rate work. You would only be taking care of the labors, and what you would learn is only how the labor cost is placed. Let's say if a local contractor is dealing with building construction as a contractor with material and labor cost and everything, then it's good. If a local contractor is doing roadworks from end to end solution, then it is good. So you need to bifurcate the local contractors in terms of the scope of the works that they're doing. So any contractor who is doing multiple activities and multiple scope of work is definitely an advantage and will add value to your career. But that basically depends on also how do you go about the things on day-to-day basis and how you learn the thing. It is not only that a local contractor will not be a good platform or a big contractor will be a good platform. It is also, once you get into that organization, it is also how you continuously improve yourself on day-to-day basis, and then you execute whatever you learn, you execute and you implement, and then the results show, then only you grow. So it is not only getting into a good institute for learning or into a good contractor for working. It is also something which is a continuous process for you to implement the things and show results to your owners. So anywhere it is good, but just see that the local contractors are engaged into doing the work from end to end with all the materials, all the labors, all the machinery with themselves, and not only on material rate basis or something like that. So Ria is asking, sir, right now many programming courses are very popular and even many civil engineering students are doing them. Do you think they are beneficial for us civil students if we are interested in field or planning aspects? What are the programming courses, if you can tell me, if you can exactly pinpoint what are the programming courses you are referring to? You can write it down or you can speak. Computer language programming courses. I I don't think that computer language programming courses are of going to be any use for you in the civil industry, because planning aspect do not need the computer language programming, because the softwares that I talked about, let's say uh, MSP or the Primavera or the Beam, they are all developed softwares by the computer language programming. So you can immediately work on those, and then you can plan or you can construct or you can do the further things which a civil engineer is supposed to do or a construction professional is supposed to do. However, computer language programming course is not essential if you intend to pursue your career in construction. If you intend to pursue your career in IT industry, you can definitely try for those, and then you can appear for the IT industry companies. Because when I was at your place, I was placed into TCS as well when I was with BIT. So if that is the intent, then it's good. But then computer language programming is not going to take you anywhere in the civil industry once you join a construction company. I hope I have answered you. So Ankit is asking that, could you please suggest us where to go for internship in structural designing, which will be beneficial for future? Okay, so for structural designing internship, you can go for any structural designing organization which are there. Let's say I am in Pune, so I can name a few organizations who are into structural designing in Pune. But I am not sure about the structural designing companies which are there in Chhattisgarh, or perhaps if you are from some other place also. But any firm who's into structural designing, you can go for that firm as an intern, and then perhaps you can learn how they operate on various softwares, and then you can learn structural designing there. So any organization is good, provided they are into structural designing and provided they are doing the designing on the relevant softwares and other. Nowadays I don't think anybody does structural designing without the software. So any organization who are doing a sizable kind of job, let's say they are into designing of the buildings or they are into designing of the bridges or something, you can go for any organization. And as I said, trust me, it is not about where you go for your internship or where you go for your job. It is about what you do after getting into that job or internship is what matters. So anywhere you can go.
Sir, could you please suggest the name, sir?
So if I had to suggest the names for companies, there could be CRN. CRN is CR Narayan Rao. Then there is Edifice. Then there is PPS. Then there is CMAC. Then there is how to say, there is Telge. There are a lot of structural designers. There is GA Bilare. There is J plus W. So there are plenty of names that I can tell you. So you just need to see what is your current location and where you want to go about your internship. Let's say in Pune, if you want to go, you can find out the names in Pune. You want to do it in Mumbai, you find out the names in Mumbai, Nagpur, whatever, wherever you want to do it. You need to finalize the location and do that internship. Because and even ideally, what I can suggest you, see, after civil engineering, any internship that you do is generally is they do not pay you any stipend or anything after engineering. So I have also, after or during engineering, you do not get any stipend paid. But when you are doing your construction management, you get this stipend. So let's say if you are basically talking about doing a structural engine designing today, wherein you are not looking for any stipend, any organization which suits your location, you can contact them via email, or if you can take out the number or something from the website or something, you can talk to them, you can request them, and they would be more than happy to take you. However, what happens with a structural designing firm, let's say, well, I will take a bit of time for you to understand also this. When somebody comes for an internship to me from in a contractor organization, we offer sometimes our HR offers free internship. So because we need not devote a lot of time on you to learn something. Let's say if you come to me, I put you to some project and I put you to some engineer. I say, okay, take care of this guy. He will be with you daily for 2 months, and then teach him. So when you will be with that guy for 2 months, over a period of time, you will see how he's reading the drawings, how he's talking to people, how is he organizing resources, and all those you can learn easily. So that is something which is quite possible. However, when we talk structural designing internship, it is something that the structural designing organizations also are very tight on their resources. They may have only 4, 5, or 10 resources to look after their projects, and they do not recruit people only looking at the business development. They only recruit people when they have the business in their hands. So if they have business in their hands and then their employees are busy in serving the customers or the clients, they may not be able to give you that kind of time in terms of learning. So perhaps if you have an interest on structural designing, take a paid course, or you go for a course somewhere with a good training institute, and then you learn that software, because they will take an interest in teaching you. So that is the difference. Certificates from Shashikant is asking, certificates from courses offered by online learning platforms like. Okay, so see, whether they will add value if you are seeking a job, it will depend. It basically depends. Let's say anything that you learn will always give you value. Remember this: anything that you will learn is always a value, provided how you are able to present that thing to the person whom you are talking to. So if you learn Coursera or ADX from online courses also, it is okay. But then uh, what happens is when you learn those, and when somebody of, let's say, I am there or somebody else is there who's there for recruiting, he would be looking into, because we are so occupied into implementation part of it, we would be looking into implementation of it. And the knowledge that you would have learned from online learning or something would be on a uh, theory, or maybe on some practical level, but not on a project level. So that is the difference, wherein perhaps even when you have learned something, you may not be able to put that value on the table at that point in time when you're seeking a job. So better it would be you go for a course, physically with an organization, because then what would happen that you would learn also, and then they will put you on the physical training also. So perhaps you should look for a course that gives you a learning in terms of the software or whatever you want to learn, but then you understand whether that course is also offering a learning on the ground, whether they are giving you a chance to learn it on the ground or on the actual projects, or maybe by case studies, whether they are teaching you something by the case study or something. So if they are adopting that method of teaching, it's okay. Any learning that you do is an advantage, provided what the other person is looking for and what you are offering matches. So this is how you should go about it, but you should go for a physical training course, and then you should look into whether they give you a physical exposure of the implementation of the training.
I think that's all for the queries.
Okay.
Okay. If anyone wants to connect with Pankaj sir, his LinkedIn ID is there in the chat box. Once again, I would like to thank our guest speaker, Mr. Pankaj Mahajan sir, Professor Prabhakar sir, core member of the Training and Placement Cell, and Professor Malika ma'am, civil faculty, and everyone else for being a wonderful audience. Lastly, if anyone is interested to join us, a link has been dropped in the chat box. You can register through our website and explore various opportunities by TechnoHub. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.